Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Auditing Insanity Newscast brought to you by ReallyCoolNews. I'm Jim Finch and I'm going to be your host for 3 news stories and a look at the GoFundMe market today. It's a bright and beautiful day here in the great confines of my house as I look out on my sunny front yard in north central Pennsylvania and wonder just how long I'd last strolling in the grass before allergies took me to another place. Ah, sweet release. Not today, grass. Not today. On that grimacing note, I'll ask you to focus on GoFundMe. Should Chille DeCastro offer refunds? It was another day of goose eggs for all of the major funds we cover this week, with the continued failure of Chille DeCastro stealing focus from most of our major funds and overshadowing our own $10 win for the day. DeCastro hasn't live-streamed since Thursday and has done little to nothing to promote his fundraising campaigns, even though he is in dire need of money. While he may have had a partial refund this week with the dismissal of his obstruction case in Las Vegas, it's unclear how much money he got back from his retainer of an expensive lawyer in the case, or if he'll consider refunding it to those who supported him in his crowdfunding effort. That particular GoFundMe, his legal defense fund crime scene tape illegal arrest campaign, raised $2,465 out of a $30,000 goal. It had 38 total donations and hadn't seen a donation in 8 days. Theoretically, since DeCastro no longer needs the money raised for the campaign, the money should be refunded, or the campaign should be ended. DeCastro might argue that the lawyer in the case filed basic paperwork with a cost exceeding the donated $2,465. If DeCastro is getting a significant refund from the $15,000 he said he paid, there's no excuse not to refund his donors. There may have also been questions about how much he owes the attorney for Garrett Press with Ranker Van Net's defense, and if he's even going to pay the attorney. On the day of Van Net's loss, DeCastro seemed skeptical about paying the attorney and indicated that he hadn't touched the money from Ranker's GoFundMe account, claiming that all payments came out of his own pocket. The fund hasn't had a donation in 9 days and only raised $4,194 out of the $45,000 goal. Again, if DeCastro isn't using the money, why is he stockpiling it? Why not return the money to his donors if he isn't using it? DeCastro has also apparently indicated that suing judges will not lead anywhere in recent live streams. While he claimed he would win a lawsuit against the jail he was housed in and the police officer who arrested him in the conviction that was ultimately overturned, he would not win against the judge who convicted him. Then why is he still raising $100,000 to sue? His Justice for All legal battle for accountability may have only raised $4,558 out of that $100,000 goal, but that money was supposedly intended to go to suing Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman. If that plan is no longer in play, then why still raise the money for it? I'm a realist and realize there's no chance in hell that DeCastro will ever return the money to his fans or shut down the fundraisers. That said, with 3 of his 5 fundraisers now with no actual purpose, you'd think he'd worry more about the 2 that still aren't getting hits and would spend his time promoting actual needs. Oh, that's right. He never promotes any of those funds anyway. So in the immortal words of Miss Emily Latella, never mind. If you'd like to join our tiny number of followers and even tinier number of donors who force us to write this column every morning for the past God knows when, we do have a GoFundMe of our own. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing new stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. Jeremy Dewitte, plea deal denied by judge. YouTubers So You Dated a Police Impersonator and Jeremy Dewitte News by PoliceTube's uncle differed on the fate of charges against former YouTuber and police enthusiast Jeremy Dewitte, as a plea deal in one of Dewitte's many pending charges was thrown out this week. The judge overseeing one of the many Dewitte charges rejected a plea deal that would have seen Dewitte agree to accept time served and 100 hours of community service, plus fines and fees, pleas in exchange for pleading out in a case where Dewitte is alleged to have staged a traffic accident and committed insurance fraud. So you dated a police impersonator's take on the limited plea deal, when much harsher punishment would be called for with the charges Dewitte faced, was that something changed in the evidence. He said that whatever smoking gun the prosecutor had access to was no longer in play, and the prosecutor was getting something when he had no real case to move forward with. Backing this, the host said that he consulted a court clerk who made similar comments that the low level of the plea deal did not fit the crime as charged, and that something had changed with the prosecution to bring about such a pro-Dewitte plea deal. Police Tube's uncle disagreed that the case was falling apart and was waiting to see what happened, as the judge has given both sides in the case until September 17, 2024 to come up with a harsher plea deal before determining whether to accept it. Dewitte has been accused of faking traffic accidents and inflating the severity of damage to his cars involved in the incidents. He is currently accepting a plea on one count of failing to register a change in vehicle ownership as a offender rather than the multiple counts of staging a motor vehicle accident. Despite the possible outcome of the case, Dewitte is facing multiple charges across Florida and federal tax evasion charges. Dewitte gained fame in the early 2000s with multiple charges of impersonating a police officer. He was convicted of battery of a teenage girl while pretending to be a police officer in 2004 and has been required to register as offender since then. In 2019, he gained national exposure as he was arrested for pulling drivers over while pretending to be a police officer and working as a funeral escort. Most of Dewitte's current charges are in relation to failure to register changes in ownership of vehicles as required to by his offender status. Journalist Craig Hendry stages confrontation. Independent journalist Craig Hendry acted more like a First Amendment auditor in his most recent video as he reported from the Stark County, Indiana courthouse after being rejected by security for filming in the building. Hendry's report began with a voiceover explaining that he was at the Stark County courthouse to investigate corruption and that his video was a curated section from a larger video he'll release at a later date. The reporter entered the building and immediately refused to identify his needs with the security guards at the security checkpoint at the front of the building. He then began to scream at the security guards when they stated that he was not going to be allowed in to film in the building. Hendry screamed that it was his First Amendment right to film and that a policy by the building not to allow filming could not prohibit him from recording in the entire building, just the area adjacent to an actual room deemed as a courtroom, which the entryway was not. The journalist then played a cat-and-mouse game with one of the two senior citizen security guards, moving around him and pretending to run up a flight of stairs while the security guard got into the elevator, then returning down the stairs to find the county prosecutor's office. Catching up with the wascally Hendry, the security guard informed the reporter that the prosecutor's office had requested that he leave the building. Hendry told the security guard to either arrest him or leave him alone, as he was not leaving the building. Eventually, the Stark County Sheriff's Department dispatched a deputy who left shortly after the security guard apparently kicked Hendry's camera staff while walking past him. Citizen journalist Hendry and the citizen security guard exchanged insults, calling each other communists at one point, and the hilarity continued as the guard got Hendry to leave the building, only to see Hendry quietly follow the security guard back into the building to continue his argument with the guard. Hendry has requested all of his fans brigade the Stark County, Indiana Sheriff's Office to protest his treatment at the hands of the security officers, despite neither man claiming to work for that office. It is unclear whether journalist Hendry will now be suing over the apparently staged incident. Floyd Wallace threatens all Superchat format. Sex tourist and conservative Floyd Wallace threatened his fans with his plan to turn off his ability to see his side chats by going into Superchat only mode Saturday afternoon, where he would only be notified of comments when his viewers paid for his attention. Wallace was in the middle of another fundraiser for his replacement passport, with just $267 left out of the $272 goal when he began to announce future plans for his foreign-only channel, including his strange idea to shut out trolls by making all comments pay to play. While he simply wouldn't disable chat, he said he was working on turning off notifications of what was said in chat to monetize interaction with himself and his fans or his trolls in order to only see comments that came with a donation. Wallace has previously put in place a policy where he would only answer questions that came in super chats. That policy offered no reduction in trolls to his channel, as the trolls pay him the most minimal of super chats, then ask him even more outrageous questions that he says he must answer, as it's his policy to answer all super chatted questions. More often than not, the super chats he currently receives contain highly racist or highly offensive content that Wallace reads anyway, as he's been paid to do so. In other news, Wallace was alarmed by Friday's plane crash in Brazil, which resulted in the death of 61 people. Wallace said that he was thinking about buying a parachute to use if he was in a plane crash and advocated for all airlines to install parachutes on every seat. He dropped the idea after one of his viewers explained that planes fly so high that more often than not, parachutes would not work. He then responded negatively to a super chat that asked him if he would help other passengers off of a plane that had crashed had he been sitting next to an emergency exit. Wallace stated that he was no hero and he would immediately exit the plane, despite being young and virile, as he would never sacrifice his life for someone else. Turning his attention to his plan to leave for Colombia on August 25th, despite not having a working passport or plane tickets, and ignoring his trial this week, which may put him in jail in Oklahoma, he again explained that he was going to Colombia as sex in America was too much work and that women had all the power. He again explained that more often than not, he could spend hundreds of dollars on a woman and not get sex from a date in America, while in Colombia or another third world countries, he could get sex up to 3 times a day without effort, along with a home-cooked meal. The YouTuber answered criticism from his chat about his viewers only wanting to see Wallace's attempts at sexual conquests while overseas. Wallace corrected the person by stating that his viewers were turning in for his demonstrations of the fine art, culture, and experience of living overseas. He then announced that if he raises the money for a passport, he would be employing someone to work as a camera person and someone else to dance with when he went out to clubs to counter his fears of going out and experiencing the fine arts, culture, and social centers outside of the United States. Finally, Wallace answered another super chat inquiry about his dispute earlier in the year with a hospital from the Dominican Republic that Wallace claimed double-billed him. He said that PayPal turned down his claim against the hospital and refused to refund his money. Wallace's ongoing quest for the $267 he needs for a new passport is expected to continue later today. So I've wasted most of the day after getting the newspaper done early and preparing to do all sorts of things this afternoon. Instead, the usual Facebook Reels and YouTube Shorts drew me to places no one would dare to go twice. Oh, Jelly Bean Brain, you're a cold source of spam on 2 services now. Oh, congrats! Now can I see some cooking videos instead of you constantly twerking through my feed? I really want to learn recipes I'm never going to make. We've got nothing else for you tonight. We're tired. It's about to be Monday. And if you want to, please hit up our donation links as we have multiple needs, and tonight, the need for a good night's sleep is the most tantalizing of them all. Good night, everyone.